GM, good morning. Welcome to the Milk Road Show, the daily crypto show where our updates are smoother than that one friend who never gets friend zoned. I'm your host, Jay Hamilton, and today we are joined by Frank Mong, COO at Nova Labs and Helium. In today's episode, we are going to introduce you to one of the fastest growing DePIN projects. We're going to break down how their business model works and their profitability and look into their revenue. We're going to explain why the Helium token, ticker HNT, is down since the election when everything else is up. You're going to be surprised by the answer. And we're going to help you evaluate whether this project could be a great investment for you. It's Black Friday, and you know what that means. It's our biggest sale of the year, and the timing couldn't be more perfect because now is when you can make life-changing money in crypto in the next year. So we are giving an incredible deal, our biggest sale of the year, 40% off Milk Road Pro this week only. Plus, if you buy our annual membership, we will throw in our crypto investing masterclass for free. That's 6 hours of content breaking down exactly what you need to do to build a winning portfolio. What do you get as a Milk Road Pro member? You get weekly token reports breaking down your investment so you can invest with confidence. You get access to the Milk Road Pro portfolio, which has 12 tokens and gives you the exact allocation percentage of each in our portfolio. You get weekly, where are we in the cycle indicators? That's multiple charts showing you where we are in the cycle so you can track when is time to sell, when are we getting close to the top. And of course, you get access to the Milk Road Pro community where there is thousands of investors just like yourself talking every day. And the Milk Road team is there giving you guys feedback, answering your questions, and make sure that you invest with confidence and that you know when to buy and you know when to sell, and you guys come out as winners in this cycle. So that's what we're all about. So make sure you hit the link in the show notes or the QR code on the screen and hook up this Black Friday deal. Incredible deal. Can't believe we're doing it. Milkman's nuts, but things are hot and we're feeling good. Before we jump in, we need to take a moment to hear from our sponsors. Do you own your data? Nope. Every post, click, and search you make is controlled and monetized by unseen giants. I've had enough. It's time for Navigate, where their mission is to give back data ownership to you and share profits with you. That's right, money in your pocket. How, you ask? First, the Navigate browser extension makes it easy to turn your everyday browsing into passive income. Second, the DataQuest game, where you can boost your earnings and help train their AI. Visit navigate.io today to earn and own your data. Meet Uphold, a trading platform that's changing the way you think about money. Imagine this, earning up to 4.9% APY on your US dollars. No catches, no lockup periods, and no fees. And yes, it's FDIC insured up to $2.5 million. They offer access to over 300 digital assets, which you can trade, store, and exchange with confidence, knowing Uphold operates with a 100% reserve and a transparent model. Create your account, fund it with a few taps, and you're ready to go. Click the link in the description and join Uphold today. Welcome back. Okay, before we bring on Frank, I just wanted to take a chance to give you guys a little bit of context about DePIN and Helium because it's a fascinating project that really dives into using crypto in ways that we have never seen before. I'm so excited about this. So first, if we look at DePIN, which stands for Decentralized Physical Infrastructure, DePIN's market cap has skyrocketed. Market cap is up over 400% in the last year, reaching over 20 billion. And fundraising volume has also surged. We're seeing fundraising up 300% year over year. So clearly, investors are excited and builders are excited about the DePIN space. There's over 100 projects building in DePIN right now. And I'm very confident, as we are at Milk Road, that DePIN is going to be a major crypto use case in the future. Now, as we started to take a closer look at DePIN, we looked at a lot of projects, and the one that really stood out to us was Helium, and that's why we had to get them on the show today. Now, when we look at Helium, there's one stat that really gets me excited right now, and that's that since in June of this year, Helium launched their carrier offload program. Now, that's a bit of jargon. Basically, what that allows is every day in the US, there is over 200,000 mobile phone subscribers from other carriers like T-Mobile or AT&T or Verizon that are connecting to Helium hotspots and using these Helium hotspots to get better cell phone service than AT&T, T-Mobile, or Verizon can provide. The reason is that Helium provides this service in a different way than these traditional providers. These traditional providers, what they do is they build massive capital intensive cell phone towers. These cell phone towers cost usually around $300,000 and are very difficult to build. They're particularly difficult to build in cities and in high dense population areas. And even if they do build them in a city, let's say like next to a major stadium that holds 100,000 people, once you have 100,000 people indoors in a stadium all at once, cell phone coverage becomes crap. As you guys all know, you're at the T Swift concert, you can't post anything because everybody's trying to connect at the same time. Helium solves this problem in a very unique way by allowing anybody to be a mobile carrier provider, to produce a mobile coverage through a Helium mobile hotspot. So now you're in that crowded area, you're in a stadium, you're at a concert, you're downtown New York in a coffee shop, or you're in a building with a lot of people and a lot of metal and a lot of physical infrastructure around you. That makes it very difficult for that cell phone coverage to get to that space. So Helium solves this problem. And as I said, they launched this program, which is still in beta, in June, and they're already seeing over 200,000 subscribers every single day use this program. Here's what this means if we look at the numbers. There are over 300 million mobile data subscribers in the US. If just 3% of those mobile users, that would be 10 million, offload to Helium, if they use Helium, and each consumer on average uses about 200 gigabytes per day. Let's assume that 5% of that data is what they are using when they are using Helium. That's 10 gigabytes per user. Okay. And if we assume that the average cost is 50 cents per gigabyte, now that can range, but let's assume that's a safe assumption. This could translate to over $50 million in revenue, annual revenue for Helium. This is absolutely huge. It's solving a real problem in the US. And it's going to be something that most people are not seeing because this is slow growth. And most people don't know that they're using Helium's coverage in this way because it still would show that you're using AT&T or using Verizon or using T-Mobile. So we've got here a DePIN project that is solving a real problem that has just started, that is seeing incredible growth, has real users using it. And that's just Helium's hotspot side. Their other side of their business is Helium Mobile, where they offer a $20 unlimited mobile plan. And you might say that's absolutely crazy. How is that possible? Well, that's why we had Frank on the show today to dive into him explaining how they do this and explaining the future of Helium, which is so exciting. So buckle up for us to now go to Frank and introduce him to you guys. Frank, welcome to the Milk Road Show.
Jay, it's great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you as well. Let's start with user growth. Helium launched back in July of 2023. You guys have had incredible user growth over the last year and a half, roughly, up to over 120,000 active users on Helium Mobile. How have you achieved that user growth?
Yeah, I think, on the subscription side, one of the things that we've been really trying to do is figure out if crypto can positively lower cost of acquisition. So in the space of, getting subscribers in this phone subscription telco space, the customer acquisition cost is the key to the success of that business. Otherwise, it's a very tough and low margin business. As in the United States, there are, I don't know, hundreds of what we called MVNOs. And to compete in that space, it's a math game. And so for us, um, being powered by crypto and have an incentive that is underpinned by crypto, I think gives us that sort of edge. I think where we really stand out there is really on the crypto side, where
Mm-hmm.
folks on our plan can actively help us, what we call discovery map. Discovery mapping is kind of like a technical word for really sharing your location, so we understand where people tend to gather, people tend to go, and we use that data. We anonymize it. We don't monetize it at all, but we allow our subscribers to opt in to sharing, and if they do opt into sharing that, they earn a reward, and that reward comes in the form of a cryptocurrency.
And you can use that reward to pay for your cell phone plan. So, I mean, obviously you could also sell it or trade it, do whatever you want. It's a token. But I think that most people, what they're doing is they're using it to pay for their cell phone plan, which is giving them
Yeah.
some people. I've heard some people are getting free cell phone plans basically as a result of that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's quite different and quite unique in that way. You can use the crypto for a number of things. You can, throw it onto an exchange, or you can swap it on Solana. It is a
Mhm.
part of the Solana ecosystem, so it's super easy to do. But you can also pay for your cell phone plan, which is quite unique. And I don't think any other, I think, provider allows for that, where you can use point systems to pay for your plan
Mhm.
on a monthly basis. We don't have contracts either, for that matter, so there's no lock-in, per se. So we're not trying to, corner you in, and you know we're not trying to shackle you down for years. And I think that's probably the other part that is super unique to our plan is, we don't sell your data. We don't monetize your privacy,
Mhm.
and we don't try to like force you to stay with us. We love for you to stay with us because you enjoy the service and you enjoy the interface, which is probably novel in itself in the phone industry, so, or at least in the phone service industry. I think ultimately, when people look at Helium Mobile, hopefully it may not be right now, but when you start thinking about a few years down the line, I really do hope people see that the value prop of Helium Mobile is that the crypto piece really reduces the cost of phone service over time. That's really our ultimate goal with this effort, is to like flip the equation backwards, or flip the triangle upside down, where the people win and the people are earning versus a centralized carrier. I think that's sort of the mission here from our perspective is, we've got to be smart and savvy and leverage the crypto incentive to figure out how to reduce costs, reduce the cost of access to the
Mhm.
internet using a smartphone, so that it's accessible to anyone. Certainly it's in the US right now, but our aspiration is to somehow do this outside of the US as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if there was a $20 phone plan in Canada, that's for sure. That definitely does not exist here. Let's just talk a little bit about understanding, profitability behind the business, because the thing that, when I see a $20 phone plan, I'm like, How is that possible? Like,
Yeah.
is that profitable? Is Helium profitable right now? Is the Obviously, one of the things that you're avoiding is the massive infrastructure costs that a lot of telcos have to
Right.
take on. So maybe that's how you're able to offer such a low cost plan. Walk us through how the numbers look and how they work so that we can understand that.
Yeah, I can talk to it at a high level. We're a
Mhm.
private company, so we don't disclose
Of
details of
course.
our financials. But we don't think about profitability today yet, because we're not quite there yet. I think one of the things we look at and we have access to is, certainly we're venture backed, so we are, in a way, we have cash on hand to operate the business. On the other side of that, because we are a service provider, Helium Mobile is a service provider on the Helium network itself. We do earn crypto for providing a service and building on top of the Helium ecosystem, and so we do have a treasury of crypto. We don't use that treasury for operations. We use it for incentives. We use it for phone
Mhm.
plans. And so we really do try to be smart about how we balance both our operating expenses as well as, promotional and expense, as it relates to customer acquisition or customer retention. And so right now it's a balancing act for us to ensure that we have runway to achieve our objectives. And so, as I go back to, like, first principles of this business, which is, we call it CAC, customer acquisition cost. The goal is to get that to zero, right? We've been hovering, I would say, anywhere between, I want to say, like $20 per sub, and at times it's been as high as 100. Just
Mhm.
for your investors, on average, when you look at telco CAC, um, it's about in that $50 to $100, depending on the brand. So the large
Mhm.
brands that everyone knows, the big three or so, they're probably operating in that $100 range, but they're putting ads on, Super Bowl, and they're
Mhm.
doing TV ads and outdoor ads. So it's quite expensive for them to acquire customers. But they also charge a lot, if you will, right? You mentioned $20
Yeah.
plan would be great. Those big three are in Canada, the big two. They charge quite a bit. It's not $20, right? Anywhere from $100 to $200, right? So it's an order of magnitude more, but it's expensive to run their operations. Beyond customer acquisition costs, they own infrastructure. Each cell tower costs about $300,000 US to put up. That doesn't take into account ongoing maintenance. So quite a bit of investment there as well. So I don't blame them for being so expensive, but they're carrying a heavy burden as
Mhm.
they drive their business. So our objective is to figure out how to be smarter. We're outsiders coming in. How do we think differently about this? How do we leverage crypto? And really, that's what we do all day, is to look at that CAC number and keep driving it lower and lower, right? So that's our objective. So I think when we think about expenses, that's one big side of it. The other big side of it is of course people. We try to operate as efficiently as we can on the people side. Those are costs that we can't avoid. We have developers and customer support, so those are very important to us. Um, and so I think from our perspective, if we can, the trick here is, I think, in the magic is if we can get the CAC down really low and we can continue to sustain growth on subscription, I think that becomes quite interesting in a
Mhm.
market that hasn't been able to do that. If you look at some of the other brands out there, they need celebrity endorsements or they need to do TV ads. Those are all multi-million dollar efforts. Um, so our objective is not to spend multi-million dollars, but yet see the results, right, of subscribers coming on board. And the other side of this is really the network. Using the Helium network is novel in the space that we're in. No one else really has that ability where individuals can put up mini cell towers. And,
Mhm.
and when we think about putting up mini cell towers, we're talking about building networks. And so we have a community, very thankful, of Helium deployers. We probably have thousands, maybe tens of thousands of deployers, in our Discord channel of 120,000 people, that all they focus on is, how do I get small businesses, malls, amphitheaters, concert halls, how do I get them to put in the Helium mini cell tower, this little Helium hotspot? And that we're talking about taking a $300,000 piece of technology, shrinking it down to anywhere from $200 to $400. I mean, that's sort of the other side of
Mhm.
this equation, where it's magical. Like, let's figure out how to do that so that you have a very low cost, highly localized network that works really well indoors. And that, in that case, that's, you can think of that as a augmentation, or it's a supplemental network to the existing cell network. Cell networks are great for outdoors. When you're outside, you're always connected. But once you're inside and you're at a Taylor Swift concert, nothing works. We've all experienced that. When you go to a concert, you want to upload to your stories because it's a great vibe.
Mhm.
Gosh, it isn't connecting. So why is that? Well, because you've got, like, 70,000 people all trying to do the same thing, and you've got a couple of cell towers there trying to handle the load, and that just doesn't work. But that's where I think something like a Helium mobile hotspot indoors is magical. And this applies to coffee shops, bars, and restaurants or malls, where you just have aggregation of people during certain times of the day, and the network gets loaded on the cell side. So this idea of offload, I think, is pretty incredible. And to enable individuals to do this, I think, is something that we really haven't seen before. Of course, the rewards are in crypto as well. And I think those are some really novel things where we figured out how to switch between our partner T-Mobile, which is a national carrier here in the United States, leverage their network when we have to, which is like parents taking kids to soccer or to violin lessons. you're going to be driving around. You need a cell tower. I can't find another way out of that other than Starlink
Mhm.
once phones can connect to satellite. But before then, you got to live your life. And I think that's where T-Mobile adds a lot of value. Once you get
Mhm.
into a venue, you're with a lot of people and you want to use social media. That's when you start to see the signal isn't as great. You're sitting in a metal building, which is like a Faraday cage. So then the indoor cell tower becomes super important there. I think that's where a lot of the Helium network adds a ton of value, and it really supplements
Yes,
that
so much
cell
to
network.
unpack there, Frank. I'm going to
Yeah.
try to take this one point at a time. First, on the CAC, customer acquisition cost. This is a concept that I think people are not realizing how big it is going to be in the next decade. You guys are leading the charge here. You're one of the first to really use this model of, can we use crypto incentives to
Mhm.
lower customer acquisition costs? And rather than spend money on traditional marketing and Web2 marketing and billboards and celebrities, instead, let's put that money back into our customers' hands. Let's give them incentives and make them the marketing engine and make them value being part of it. And so I think that's huge. And we're going to see that. We're going to see that in gaming. We're going to see that
Yeah.
across all different categories. And it's going to totally flip marketing around in a very positive way in my mind. When you mentioned the Helium network and the mobile hotspots, I want to talk more about that. But before we go there,
Yeah.
you mentioned T-Mobile. What's
Mhm.
the what's the benefit to T-Mobile to partnering with you? That's one thing that I like. To me,
Mhm.
T-Mobile would say, "Hey, you're a competitor. We don't want to
Right.
partner with you and give you access to our network." Like, that seems so. What's the benefit for them?
Mm. Yeah. I think there's two pieces there with the T-Mobile relationship. Some of your investors may not recall, but T-Mobile, which is the Deutsche Telekom out of Germany, is an investor in Nova Labs Helium Mobile in our Series D round. And that's the
Mm,
parent company of T-Mobile USA. And so on the one hand, they invested in us. So, we've met with their CEO, we have conversations with their teams on a fairly regular basis. And I think that's what investment in us gets them
mm,
access to. So perhaps they want insight into how we think and how we behave. And the other aspect of that is that they're an international company, and we're only in the U.S. market. So yes, in a way, we are disruptive potentially to their business model, but it's in a very specific market for them in the USA, not their other markets in the international market, at least for now. And I think the other side of it is, when we went out and looked at a partner for the macro network, for the large nationwide network here, um, we talked to everyone. We talked to the top three providers in the USA. And so in those conversations, I would say maybe it was the investment relationship, but we got probably the best deal from T-Mobile USA out of the other carriers. And so we did that in an independent way. Um, and that decision is really, in that relationship is really us buying data from their wholesale business, and that's something that's a regular occurrence. When I say that, I mean like other mobile providers like Mint Mobile has done the same thing. They partnered with T-Mobile and they purchased data access on their cell network through their wholesale team. So we're very close with the T-Mobile wholesale team because we are a customer of theirs, and
mhm,
we buy data from them. So in a sense, they're happy to take our money, right? They're happy to
mhm.
take us as a business, and we are definitely doing this in a very novel way. And so they want to see how this works, you know. And the good news is, they're rooting for us. I think they're fairly innovative when it comes to large telecommunications companies, and so they're quite interested in our model and how we proceed and how we progress.
Frank, one thing that we noticed when we looked into HNT token, which is the main token that if you wanted to invest in Helium, that's the token you would hold. It's down since the election, which is a bit eyebrow raising because everything is up since the election in crypto. And so, uh, any idea why it's down since the election?
Yeah, I had the same like question as you, and I don't remember if this is in our community Discord. So for your investors that don't know, there's a Discord channel. Discord.gg/helium is where you can find the community. Now, usually there's not a lot of talk about token price. In fact, I think it's not allowed. But I think there was a channel that's just for token price if you have to talk about it. Or this is on X. I can't remember which, so you have to do a little bit of searching. But I did that, and I found someone posted a link to a wallet address where there were two massive sales of 1.5 million HNT, so roughly 7 to 8 million dollars worth of HNT, where they sold two times in two tranches over the last 10 days or so. And allegedly, that wallet belongs to the FTX bankruptcy admin. And so if you think about what's happening with FTX and the case in the bankruptcy trial, the admins had to liquidate all assets to pay back their customers. And I didn't even know FTX had HNT, but I guess it might make sense because Helium wasn't. Helium had its own L1. If you look back in history, and so maybe FTX did a wrapped HNT of some sort on Solana, which required you to put a bunch of HNT in, and you would get some wrapped HNT out. Maybe over that time, they accumulated HNT, and with the bankruptcy, you have to liquidate. So that's the explanation, and that's sort of like what we see, at least what I've seen.
Yeah. So nothing to do with my thought, to be honest, when I was like, is this a regulation issue? Like, is Trump somehow going to like regulate decentralized DePIN or something, which seems crazy because Trump would definitely be in support of DePIN. I would guess he'd be in support. I mean, he supports crypto and he just supports general innovation and anything that is good for the economy, which DePIN really is. So very interesting. So it has nothing to do with the election. This is just a total coincidence that the FTX creditors had to sell a bunch of Helium tokens right around the same time. And as a result, in the last 14 days, Helium's down 14%. I think it actually got as low as like a low. It was as low as $5.50 the token, which was quite a drop. Interesting. So this is just a supply issue. Very interesting. So yeah, you guys listening in, you know what we think about supply issues like this, one-time supply issues. This could be a bargain price opportunity, guys. Frank, you don't need to say anything about that. That's my opinion, not yours. Awesome. Wow. Very, very interesting. Thanks for clarifying that for us, Frank. I want to talk about the carrier offload program because this is a key program for you guys for many ways, but it has the potential to bring a lot of revenue down the road. It's just in beta right now and it's new. So, but can you explain the carrier offload program and maybe your vision for like where you think it could go in the future?
Yeah, I think the carrier offload program that we're running in beta right now, I think the simplest way to think about it is this Helium network that individuals are building, this mini cell towers indoors, has the ability to actually connect not just Helium Mobile subscribers, but really any cell phone subscriber, including the top three, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile.
And would that, sorry, Frank, just a quick question. Would that
Yeah,
happen automatically or would I
it's
need to connect?
automatic.
It's automatic.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's automatic. There's technology standards that exist where a cell phone has certain credentials, and so everyone has this. Doesn't matter who your provider is. Your cell phone has something called a certificate, and that certificate's tied to the eSIM. This gets very technical into your phone, but the way your phone works is everyone has a SIM, a physical SIM that goes into the side of this phone, or there's an eSIM that's software based that goes into the phone. So Apple, Samsung, Google, they've all got this standard, and this is global. Every carrier, every cell carrier does this, and so whether you know it or not, it's there. That eSIM or that physical SIM has something called a certificate, and that certificate is how your phone authenticates into a network once it walks in. So once you come into the United States, you got a bunch of different carriers, your eSIM will be recognized by a cell tower. We've created a situation where our hotspots can recognize your certificate. And if we have a partnership with that your carrier. So if your carrier is AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, and you come into the vicinity of our network and we have a relationship with them, this offload relationship, then your phone will automatically just continue to work indoors and just
Mm.
connect. This is especially important if you're in an indoor environment, you're in a inner city with lots of buildings like New York City. Manhattan's a great example. Buildings everywhere, concrete jungle. You go into a coffee shop, you're surrounded by massive buildings. That is a natural landscape for bad cell coverage indoors. It's just, it doesn't matter what you do, the concrete, the metal just creates havoc for cell signals for getting into that coffee shop. So as a customer of any of the big cell phone providers, you want it to work. You want to be productive. You want it to use your phone, connect to the internet. And that's just not possible if you go into that coffee shop. And so rather than having spotty service, some coffee shops have Wi-Fi, some don't, you just don't know. Then this certificate idea with a Helium Mobile hotspot, it just works. You walk in, the AT&T signal, the T-Mobile, whatever signal, it just
Who
continues to work really
who
well.
are you partnered with on the carrier
Yeah, we
offload
haven't.
program?
Great question. We haven't announced the names of the carriers. We've partnered with 2 out of the 3 or 4 big ones in the US, and we haven't announced it because we haven't gotten permission. And
Right.
so, your investors probably know this. There's something called an NDA, non-disclosure. We signed that, and so we can't disclose unless we get permission, and we haven't gotten permission. Not that we don't
Yeah.
want permission, we certainly do.
It's coming
But
though.
right
It's
now
coming.
it's yeah, right now it's just showing and demonstrating that the technology that we've built works well. It
Right.
scales well. It's consistently working well. And that's the key, right? And so rather than us worried about, whether we have NDA or not, or are we allowed to say it or not, the focus is let's just make sure this stuff works really well,
Mhm.
and let the performance speak for itself. And over
Mhm.
time, as we become very reliable, I think a lot of these big carriers will be happy to talk about it. We just have to prove ourselves
Right.
continuously.
So map this out for me like a few years down the road. Let's go down the road and let's just assume that all carriers, all big telcos in the US are using
Yeah,
your carrier offload program, probably because they don't really have another option. They aren't good at infrastructure in these indoor spaces. They're not going to put a $300,000 cell phone tower in a stadium or something like that. That seems,
right.
maybe they will, but so they have benefit to partnering with you. You are solving a problem that they can't solve themselves. How does money flow here? Do they pay you every time one of their customer cell phones automatically comes onto
Yeah,
the Helium network?
yeah. So behind the scenes, this idea of offloading to somebody else's network, that was cool. Isn't it? Has been tried in the past, and I think um, you know how we work with each of these carriers is a negotiation. Like, how much data do they want to offload? How much are they willing to pay per gigabyte? Those are all economics that we're testing. That's what we're in beta. We're still negotiating some of these rates with these guys. We're trying to figure out how much we can get, of course, and of course they're trying to figure out how little they can pay, right? So that's the game in everything, supply and demand, right? And so I think for us, that's an ongoing thing right now, and that's why we're in beta. But the other consideration for them is they don't want this to be fly by night. They want this to be scalable. They want a solution that they know can work. And so today they select. So we have a network of Helium mobile hotspots, indoor cell towers, and outdoor ones around the country in the United States. I think it's like 25 or 27,000 hotspots out there now. And the carriers, these large carriers, they will go and pick and choose which ones they want to offload. And to be fair, they actually have a fairly rigorous process. Just because a person puts a hotspot, up doesn't mean they get selected. If they put a hotspot up in their home, they're not going to get picked. The cell
Mhm.
tower guys have no interest in using your house. But if you put it in a coffee shop, right, and there's like 300 people a day that come through, or you put it in a next to a stadium where there's basketball games with like 70,000 people, you're going to get picked, right? So like that's sort of how I think that mindset works, because that's where the need is where there's a lot of people gathering. There's a lot of load on their cell network, and they need to offload that load to another network. That's where we add value. So, I say this because I think some of your investors also love to put up mini cell towers. They're probably putting up helium hotspots with us, within our community, which is great. But just remember, like, pick commercial businesses, lots of people loitering or moving around. Those are the best places, because that's where the need is, right? So you want to go where there's need and you're solving a problem, and that's sort of how it works behind the scenes. And so in a way, we really can't control who gets picked. We can propose, like, oh, these hotspots have selected themselves to be in the beta program, and it's really up to the carrier partnerships that we have for them to pick. And then once they pick those, they define, we're negotiating terms, but a lot of times they'll tell us, okay, well, for that, we'll pay you this, for that, we'll pay you that. So it becomes like, I don't know what the exact number is, because it's like variable payment depending on need. So in a higher demand area, they pay more. In a very low demand area, they pay nothing, or they don't want it, period. And so that's sort of where we're at right now with these, these networks.
Amazing. So, and clearly that has the potential to generate, if this works, and if the Helium network continues to grow, if you have more of these providers, this people powered network, people putting up hotspots in these commercial areas, in areas where there's heavy traffic. I mean, you guys just announced a big partnership with Ameriband. You guys are really expanding the network rapidly right now. This could be a large revenue generator for Helium.
It could be. Yeah. And I think it definitely could be. And I think the way we look at the metrics today in the current phase that we're in, I think the two key metrics that are super, I would encourage, your audience to look at, is first the amount of data transferred. And that is important, because you want to see the amount of data that's flowing through the Helium mini cell towers. And you can go find that on Dune. So Dune is like a dashboard company that shows a bunch of, like,
Dune. Yeah.
Great. They know Dune. So go to Dune and search Helium data credits, 3 words. And there's already a dashboard they can look at. And the one that I think is really important to keep track on is the mobile data transferred in terabytes. That's key. That's how we measure this internally. Like, for us, we look at that. I look at that every day. Like, I look at that like multiple times within the hour, because I want to see how much data we're moving per day.
From the
right
hotspots.
now, we're from the hotspots. So today we're moving we're averaging about 10 terabytes per day of data.
Okay.
So what does that mean? That's a lot of Netflix streaming. That's a lot of YouTube. That's a lot of Instagram stories and Snapchatting. That's what it means. If you ask ChatGPT, it can give you some examples, right? That's what I tend to do when I tweet. I'm trying to find a way to articulate this, right? And that's important, because we're building a useful network, and you want to demonstrate usage. And so the amount of terabytes is a critical number that we look at on a daily basis. Today we're hitting 10 fairly easily every day. Our goal is to, like, get to 20, 30, 40, 100 terabytes. Like, aspirationally, we can get to a petabyte a day. That's massive, because at 2 petabytes a day, that's about $1 million a day of transactions on the chain generated by our users. That's H&T data credits. That's getting burned. $1 million a day. So that terabytes to petabyte journey is super important. That's one. The second thing to look at, unfortunately, I don't think it's in Dune. At least I haven't found it yet. But if your audience knows, like, please, like, tweet it at me. I want to know, because the other one to look at is, like, just the amount of daily users hitting the hotspot. This includes Helium Mobile users. It includes, we've got 3 carrier partners now. Can't name them, but Carrier 1, Carrier 2, Carrier 3. There's 4, actually. I don't know why. There's Carrier 4. So there's 4. So there's four, and it's called carriers. If you use the planner tool, we have too many tools, by the way. I know. Sorry.
You
We're
guys have
gonna fix this,
incredible
but
tools and stats. You got your website's
oh my
a
God,
rabbit
it's too
hole.
many. It's a rabbit hole. But when you go to planner.hellohelium.com, you scroll down, there's an area called like total carrier offload. Look at the daily subscriber number. Like today, it's like 230,000 or something. So yeah, we've been roughly in that 230. I think we even popped to like close to 300, if not, I think we exceeded 300,000. But that's important because that tells us that the network that we've put in place is in good area, is in areas where there's a lot of people, like I
Mhm,
mentioned earlier. Yeah, you want
mhm,
a useful network. Well, you got to put this thing where there's going to be people gathering. And so 230,000 to 300,000 per day is great. And we want to see that go up, obviously. And this is a combination of all subscribers. This is why I think the carrier offload becomes very interesting because now you're actually adding value not only to Helium and our Helium Mobile users, we're also adding value to other networks.
mhm.
And so again, that these are like the metrics. On the other side of that, you can see the offload data in terabytes. Now that's great, but that's like total. That's a total number, I think, since inception of
That's
whatever.
not daily. This is just total. Okay.
No, I think it's total. Yeah, yeah. So that's great, but I like to see progress on a daily basis. We're
Mhm.
pretty like we're maniacally focused on this, so I get very fanatical about that number, like daily number. So for the team out there, for the folks watching, if you want to participate, you want to help us out, like these are the metrics to look at. How many subs are we getting? Both not just ours, but other carriers we're able to offload for, and then what's that data per day look like? And that's on Dune somewhere. I don't know if you can pull the Dune up, but anyway,
We'll throw a link to the
those are
Dune
the
dashboard in the
yeah.
show notes for anyone
So
who wants to check it out.
while so while I know revenue is important for most folks that are doing the calculations and looking at this, I think right now the revenue isn't as important to us. It of course is important, but it's not the most important metric that we look at. It's really amount of terabytes per day transferred, and you want to see that go as high as possible. And obviously, our mission is to get it to petabytes, which is massive, by the way. And then the other piece is just a pure number of subscribers from all carriers hitting our network and latching on.
Incredible. Yeah, incredible. Uh, Frank, this has been a wonderful conversation, very insightful to learn about what you guys are building and the way you're approaching disrupting a one of the largest industries in America. Really excited to watch you guys over the future, and I think we'll have to get you back on in about maybe 6 months or a year or something like that to give an update
Yeah,
on your progress because you guys are just doing so much. As I mentioned, we'll have a bunch of links in the show notes of this one, as well as linking to our pro report if you guys want to go deeper into the investment side of understanding how we think about helium from an investment perspective. Frank, thanks so much again for joining us today.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a wicked awesome day, everybody. Thanks for listening in. As always, if you liked today's episode, please hit subscribe and make sure you follow us so you don't miss out on the next one. There's also a link in the description to our free 5-minute daily newsletter where we simplify crypto for you while making you laugh. And if you're willing to step up your crypto investing game, we're going to also leave a link for Milk Road Pro. You get access to our portfolio where you can see exactly what we are buying. This is your number one resource to help you invest successfully in crypto. One final note. This show is for educational purposes only, and nothing we say is financial advice. Investing in crypto or any asset is risky, and you should never invest more than you can afford to lose. Thanks so much for listening in, my friends. Have a wicked awesome day.